As Bosasa revelations abound, how can the ANC expect South Africans to vote for it come May the 8th? And Parliament's Ethics Committee finds Thabang Makwetla violated the Code of Ethics, but he's in turn accusing the committee of dereliction of duty. The PolitBureau is now in session. Nicholas Barr connecting the dots for you on this Sunday morning. And in the Politburo today, first up, we deal with those Bosasa bombshells. Angelo Agrisi returned to the State Capture Commission this week. He didn't disappoint with some more testimony that left tongues wagging. According to Agrisi, ANC top brass pocketed millions of rand from the corruption-accused firm African Global Operations, formerly known as Bosasa. Agrisi says donations worth between 10 and 12 million rand were sent to the governing party's top six.
There are large donations. I know of large donations given to the top six at one stage of 10, 12 million rand checks that were taken there. And it always appeared as if it was just taken there because then there's a meeting. But you're 100% right, Chair. Once the other people see that that company is very proliferant, don't touch it. Don't mess with it. It's working, don't touch it. Because if you touch it, you might lose your job. That's ultimately what it comes down to.
This is the same week ANC stalwarts sent an open letter encouraging members on party list to Parliament and provincial legislatures to step aside if they're facing corruption allegations. Also this week, News 24 reported that not only did Cyril Ramaphosa's campaign to become president receive a $500,000 cash donation from Bosasa, but that Andile Ramaphosa, the president's son, entered into a shady consultancy contract with the firm in 2017. Joining us to discuss this, ANC veteran and former Deputy Secretary General Cheryl Carolus. Thank you for giving us your time. And News 24 journalist Carl Cowan. So let me start off by asking you, Mrs. Carolus, how exactly can you expect South Africans to be voting for the ANC if your president, the president of the ANC, is himself facing corruption allegations?
Carl, I don't think, excuse me, Nicholas.
The other one.
Nicholas, the president isn't facing corruption allegations. There's stuff which the president should and must explain properly to the public about donations to his campaign, which I think he's in the process of explaining, and in fact has indicated he's happy to engage with the public protector and subject himself to due process. The president's son is an adult himself, and I think that he too should, in fact, face the full due process. That whether you're the president's son, it doesn't matter who you are.
Well, the allegation is now that he misled Parliament. We'll deal with that in a moment. But Kyle, you broke that story this week that not only did the president receive a 500,000 rand donation for his ANC presidency, but after he became president, then the payments started being made to Andile Ramaphosa's Blue Crane Capital.
That's right, yes. So essentially, you have to look at the timeline here to understand how this thing really unfolded. April 2017, Andile starts discussing this business deal with Bosasa. October, the donation to President Ramaphosa's campaign is made. And then by December, 10 days before the Nasrec conference, there's an advisory mandate signed between Andile and Bosasa. And then by February 2018, those monthly payments start flowing. Now, at this stage, there's nothing to indicate that this was anything other than, you know, sort of an ill-advised business deal. We brought business to the table, Bosasa helped us do it, and then in return, we were paid for that. There's nothing to suggest at this stage that there was any funds going to the president or there were any funds going to back pockets anywhere else. Of course, we're still trying to look into that, but at this stage, we know that this ill-advised business deal did exist, and it's worth about 2 million rand.
So, Cheryl, you were part of a group of ANC elders that were very, very firm during Jacob Zuma's presidency that essentially you should step aside. During his scandal-plagued presidency, there were all sorts of allegations that Duduzane Zuma was involved in corrupt deals that benefited not only him but the president's family. So is it not slightly hypocritical that the president that you have now, Cyril Ramaphosa, is more or less facing the same allegations, but you're expecting South Africa to give him an overwhelming mandate come May the 8th?
Nicholas, I think we do need to understand that there were lots of, and still are lots of very honest women and men who are doing business with Bosasa and who works for Bosasa.
But surely
there was
no,
Nicholas.
Yeah,
just give me a chance to finish this off. And I do think that I don't care whether you're Cyril Ramaphosa, whether you're Cyril Ramaphosa's son, whether you're the Pope. If there are allegations, you must be prepared to subject yourself to due process. Equally, you should be allowed the benefit of due process. And so people to this day are doing business with Bosasa that's keeping people in jobs and that in fact are running facilities which are legitimate ones. And there were a few very bad people doing very bad things. And if you're the president's son and you did improper business, well, then the law must take its course.
Carl,
So I don't think that's a debate at all. He must go through the same process. And as Carl said, there's nothing at this stage that indicates impropriety, but it needs explaining. And especially if you are, unfortunately, if you're a relative of what is known as a politically exposed or connected person, you are subjected to more rigorous things, which is sometimes unfair, but you should be.
So, Carl, the Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo asked Angelo Agrisi at the State Capture Commission this week, were there any state contracts that Bosasa was involved with that wasn't tainted by corruption? Angelo Agrisi said none. So is there any merit in Cheryl Carolus' argument that there's some good people, there's some bad people that were doing business with Bosasa?
Yes, I think if you take it down to a grassroots level, we have to remember that Bosasa had many, many contracts, many suppliers, many clients that they worked with, and many of those people were honest. When you are the son of a president or the deputy president, you shouldn't be going anywhere near Bosasa. And this is something that Andile himself has sort of admitted to. He said, you know, we should have never have done this. It's very bad. It's very, in hindsight, this is something that we shouldn't have done. At this stage, we know that.
Do you think he would have said that had he not been caught?
It's an interesting question, and of course, we can never know that answer.
But Kyle and Nicholas, listen, the wrongdoing in Bosasa, I think none of us around this table knew it at the time. I mean, I could well have supplied something to Bosasa at some point, and I can promise you my entire life I haven't touched things that were dishonest. Mm-hmm. And I do think one must accept that not everybody who was, I would argue very few people, even in Bosasa itself, who were working for Bosasa, this other than those few key individuals like Agritzi at the top, they definitely knew what was going on and why they were doing things. And they were obviously consciously going around cultivating certain relationships in order to get on with their improper stuff. But not everybody. I certainly didn't know. I thought they were legitimate.
With due respect, it wasn't only Carl Cowan, but also the likes of Adrian Besson that were reporting on this.
No, but I'm saying before all of that happened. Yeah.
But for the better part of a decade
onwards,
there has been allegations against Bosasa. Let's change tack for just a moment. We have Andile Ramaphosa answering to these allegations that his Blue Crane Capital company was involved in shady dealings with Bosasa. Here's his explanation.
Something that my father has said in Parliament, he has said it in public, and I think it shouldn't be taken lightly, that as a family, we absolutely will not do business with government. That is how we govern ourselves. And now this strengthening of those institutions, for me personally, and I think it's shared by many South Africans, we want to see these matters concluded. We want accusations to be investigated, and if investigations prove people are found to have been corrupt or bribed or what have you, we want people to be prosecuted.
So, Carl, your thoughts on Andile Ramaphosa there? I mean, is this the end of the story? Is it enough for Cyril Ramaphosa to, at arm's length, say, well, that 500,000 rand to my presidential campaign is in a trust account now, they're investigating Andile Ramaphosa. Is that good enough, and do you believe it's the end of the story?
It's not the end of the story. I believe it's a good enough response for now in terms of let's wait and see until these investigations pan out a little bit further to what was actually behind this. Because you know that for corruption to have taken place, there needs to be intent. So what we now need to understand is what was the intention of Mr. Gavin Watson in donating this money to President Ramaphosa? What was the intention of Mr. Watson, again, drawing Andile into business with him? We need to understand that at that stage we knew that a new president was coming in December 2017. So this is far more likely a story about how Bosasa tried and relatively succeeded in capturing the Ramaphosa family. But thanks to testimony from Angelo Agrisi, thanks to decades of reporting, Bosasa's sort of gravy train has been stopped in its tracks.
Ms. Carolus, wouldn't you agree that this puts not only the ANC in an extremely difficult position, but also the electorate as well? Electorate has, by and large, been voting for the ANC since 1994. So Cyril Ramaphosa is ostensibly involved in a clean-up campaign now. So close to an election, to have these allegations leveled against the presidency, why exactly should South Africans go and vote on May the 8th if this whiff of impropriety is even leaking into the new leadership?
Nicholas, I do think that what is very clear is that in our country there are people with a lot of money, from the Steinhoffs to wherever, who actually are targeting people in public office and their relatives, and in that way hoping to buy their way into improper gain. And I think that politicians need to be absolutely clear about that. And that's why I do think that, me too, I'm watching to see how our President Ramaphosa is going to handle this. The fact that it's his son means that he has to be extra cautious. And it's true that, and this is why I have been objecting to some of the people on the ANC list, precisely because, you know, regardless of what we might think about people in the private sectors, business dealings and so on, if there's criminal intent, you must deal with it. But when you have the temerity to ask the public to vote for you, some of those people whose names are on the list, who have lied to Parliament, who have violated the code of ethics of Parliament, who have been found wanting by courts, I do think that you need to have a higher moral order that applies to you if you're asking the public to vote for you. And so, how President Ramaphosa and how Andile indeed is going to handle this, it's probably going to be more intrusive than the average Joe soap might be, but so it has to be. Precisely because whoever wants to put themselves out there for the highest office in our land must be prepared to stand up to the highest moral scrutiny. So I'm waiting, and I'm seeing how President Ramaphosa, up to now, I think he's made all the right moves, and I think I agree, in fact, to say that let's see where it goes. For now, I think everything has been done properly, and let's give both sides the benefit of due process, and the rigorous one.
Some may argue that the President, who himself in his own right is worth almost $1 billion, has certain allegations, has to prove beyond reasonable doubt that he can lead without allowing his own interest to cloud his judgment while he's the #1 citizen in the land. So I'll ask you very briefly, do you think that Cyril Ramaphosa is that man?
I think he definitely is. If you look at whatever, I'm not so sure about the $1 billion, but whatever he has, he's obviously got a lot of money. But I think that he's one of those business people in this country who I think is an example of good practice and good governance. There has not been a single one of his business dealings that has been tainted by impropriety. He's a self-made man, and that's what we need more and more in South Africa, is good examples of people who've made money, but who not only has made money, but you look at the work he's doing with his Adopt a School Foundation, that in fact he's giving back without looking for any glory. You never see him cutting ribbons at any of these things. And so I would say that that's one of the reasons why somebody who has made money honestly, who understands the economy and has conducted himself impeccably in those business dealings, does deserve my vote and the public's vote.
Well, we wait with bated breath, 40 days to go, or a little bit less until elections, and the decision for South Africans to decide who will be leading the country for the next 5 years. Coming up in the next segment of the PolitBureau, Justice and Correctional Services Deputy Minister Thabang Makwetla is found guilty of violating the ethics code. He joins us next, disputing that ruling.